What's up guys? So in this video, I'm going to be going over my A+ setup for my supply and demand swing trading strategy. I'm also going to show you the 4 different confirmations I use that make it an A+ setup. So without further ado, we can go ahead and dive right into this example on AMD. So obviously looking at AMD on the weekly chart, my main strategy is supply and demand. So we can see here that there's 4 different things that I need to look for to make it an A+ setup, okay? And so the first one that I'm going to look for is trend, right? So are we in an uptrend or are we in a downtrend, right? Obviously, if we zoom out in the higher time frame, we're in a very, very clear uptrend, right? You can see here that we have obviously higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, etc. And so I'm going to be looking to buy in demand when we're in an uptrend and short supply in a downtrend. So obviously in an uptrend, I'm going to be looking at demand. So the first part when it comes to having that confirmation is going to be trend. So we got that perfect. Okay, now actually before I get into the other few confirmations, let me first go over the actual trade. So the actual trade is right here. So we look at this demand zone down here. Let me zoom in a little bit. You can see we have this very nice demand zone here. We come down, we bounce, and then we hit all the way up to $80. So the actual entry where I got in was right around here. So it was actually the week after this low here. So when I got in, ended up getting out around here on the daily chart. I'm going to show you that exit at the end of the video as well. But for now, let's go ahead and move on to the second confirmation, which is going to be a high quality demand zone. So obviously with my main strategy being supply and demand, we only want to be trading high quality demand zones, right? Now, what makes a demand zone high quality? It's going to be based on the fact of how tight the consolidation is, how fast the move is, and then also how many pullbacks there were in that move. And ideally, we don't want to see any pullbacks, right? That means we have the fastest move with no pullbacks in it. So obviously, if we're looking right here on AMD, you can see we have a very nice tight consolidation. So you can see we rally a little bit. We have a nice base. And we have a very, very strong move higher, right? So obviously there's a lot of institutions in this area that's going to be buying, loading up on as many shares as they can, and then pushing price higher and selling up here to the retail traders. Now, if we look here, we can see that we actually had 2 very, very strong candles, right? We had a push up here, no pullbacks, push up here, no pullbacks, right? The only pullback we actually had, if we take it from the low, was all the way up here. And that was, at that point, the move was pretty much over. And we didn't even come down to the 50% retracement mark. So at that point, overall, we have that very bullish trend, and we also have that high quality demand zone, right? A very fast move up, no pullbacks. And you can see here, this is a very strong area where institutions are going to be looking to buy shares, okay? Now, the next thing that we're going to look at is going to be volume, right? Now, when it comes to volume, I actually don't look at the volume when the demand zone was formed, okay? What I do is I actually look at the volume when price comes back down to that demand zone. So if we're looking at the volume here, we can see that, let me draw it actually here. So we can see that the low, when price actually hit demand, it was right here. And so this was this candle right here, right? This volume candle here. Okay, now, if we're looking, the way I do my volume is that I look at relative volume, right? So if we go back, the next 2 months, this was the highest volume week that we had over the past like 6 to 8 weeks, right? Other than this week right here, the relative volume is pretty low, right? If we, mark it out in terms of price, it'd be around the $29 area. And this one was around the $32 area, right? So obviously we can see that there's an increased volume. Now, why do I look for increased volume? Because there's buying activity, right? When we see a lot of buyers and sellers exchanging orders, there's going to be a lot of volume. We know there's a lot of activity, and that's going to be an area where I'm going to be looking for price to reverse. So here we have high volume relative to the past few weeks, so that makes this a very, very good setup, okay? Now, let me also go over the 4th confirmation, okay, which is going to be the penetration of the demand zone itself. So when I am looking at supply and demand zones, ideal scenarios, I want to see price just nick the very top or bottom of these zones, okay? So if we look at AMD here, if I draw my zone right from the open of the candle previously, which would be right here, so right before this big move, the candle before, the open of that candle would be right around 56.44. And so if we can see here, price just went down. We touched the very top of this entire zone and ended up rallying a lot higher. That's very good. Now, if price were to do something like this, where it comes all the way down to the bottom here, and then we start, consolidating and then moving a little bit higher, that's not something I like to see. For me, that wouldn't be an A+ setup. What I personally like to see is we only get off the very top of the demand zone. We also don't spend a lot of time in the demand zone, right? We want to get in and out very, very quickly. We don't want to spend a lot of time in here because that shows that there's a lot of sellers that are present, in which case, we may want to get out of the trade depending on the situation. So those are going to be the 4 different confirmations, right? So I'm going to quickly review them and then go over the trade again as well, where I entered, where I exited. So we have bullish trend, right? Obviously in a very uptrend, very strong uptrend. Yes, we do have a downtrend on the smaller time frame, but if we're looking at a higher time frame, we are in an uptrend and we do want to be looking to buy at demand zones when price is in an uptrend. Okay, so we have that. The second one is going to be the high quality zone, right? This is a very high quality zone. I honestly can't see a much bigger move than this in the previous years before it, maybe down here. But overall, this is a very, very strong move, very, very good demand zone. No pullbacks in this move. Something that I look forward, in my A+ setup. So obviously, this is going to be a very high quality demand zone here. Next thing, again, like I said, is going to be the high volume. Now, yes, the volume here isn't as high as here or down here or up through here. But it is high relative to the past candles before it, right? So if we look here, this candle lines up right here. And this was the highest volume we've had in the past, again, like 6 to 8 weeks before that. So obviously we see that there's higher volume right as we're entering demand. That means there's a lot of buying activity going on. So that's going to be our third confirmation. The fourth, again, going to be the penetration. We never really came down and penetrated the entire demand zone. We only came at the top. Didn't even make it 50% of this zone all the way down. So obviously that's going to be the fourth confirmation. Now, when exactly did I enter and exit on this trade? What I did on the weekly chart, since it is a swing trade, is I wanted to wait and be a little more cautious. So I waited for this week to close right here. Now, as we saw the week close, we actually got a gap up. So we had a small gap up. After I saw that gap up, I said, okay, we have the high volume, we have the bullish trend. We never really, came down that far into the demand zone. And then we also have the increased volume, right? As well as the high quality demand zone and the bullish trend. We have everything, right? So the next day, what I did, if we can do it on the daily chart, I'm not quite sure which day it was exactly, but I believe we gapped up somewhere around here. So I ended up getting in right around here. Let me draw my arrow in. Yeah, right around that price of $58. Where did I exit? So what I was aiming for, I had 2 different targets. I put my stop right below this low here. So, risking around, we'll call it $4 points. My first target was going to be this supply zone right here. Until we took that and I ended up getting out around half my position right here. And then I held some runners and got out the remaining position at this supply zone up here. We ended up actually breaking that supply zone. We actually ended up coming back down to demand again. This could have been another trade that I taken. I didn't, however, it would have been a really good trade as well. You can see, we got that bounce off demand. We break this supply. Now we know buyers are in control. We're still in an uptrend. We get that pullback down. I could have gotten long here. Fortunately, I didn't see this one, but that's okay. So overall, very, very solid trade. Very good risk reward. Again, risking 4 or 5 points to make a total of 74.59, around 15 points. So overall, very, very solid trade. But yeah, I just wanted to go over this quick video, guys, showing you my A+ setup. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe. Let me know in the comments what other videos to make. And yeah, hit that like button. Let me know other videos to make. And I also have a free supply demand course in the link in my bio, the bio of the description down below. So all you have to do is check that out. And yeah, thanks, guys. I will see you in the next one.